Hi, I'm Julia from Family and we're at Nursery World 2023. I'm here with Dr. Julian Grenier, who is the head teacher of Sheringham Nursery School and Children's Centre and the director of the East London Research School, and he's agreed to sit with us and answer some questions. So thank you so much, Julian.
Well, thank you, Julia.
You're welcome. You may remember the last time we chatted, so last time you spoke to Family last year, you introduced us to some research regarding children learning maths through picture books, which I thought sounded really interesting. How far has the research come? What have you learned?
Okay, so yeah, gosh, the time kind of just flies by, doesn't it? So I can't believe that was a year ago we were talking about that. But yeah, so as a research school, we've been really interested in some of the research and evidence from colleagues in the States, particularly teams at Stanford and Columbia universities, where they've been looking at helping children to learn some of the key concepts, particularly about number, through using picture books. And one of our team members, Fliss James, has done a lot of work around this project. So we piloted maths through picture books in North Yorkshire over the summer. And that was really just to give it a dry run to see if practitioners liked this approach, they responded well to it, if they could fit it into their ordinary routines of the day. These were reception teachers and TAs, and just getting some initial ideas about whether it seemed that it was beneficial to the children. And it is looking really promising on all of those fronts. So practitioners enjoyed it, they enjoyed the professional development, they found the resources positive. Children looked like they benefited a great deal from those sessions, using the picture books to explore understandings about number. So it all looks really positive. So we're doing two new things now. I just gave you 4 fingers, but I meant 2, which is, first of all, we're going to scale up that pilot. So we're going to be doing a rerun of maths through picture books on a larger scale funded by the Education Endowment Foundation. So if you keep an eye on the East London Research School website, you can keep up to date with that. And secondly, in March, we are really excited to be having a webinar with Professor Herb Ginsberg, who is one of the researchers who's really led on this work. And again, if you keep an eye on our social media and on our website, we're going to be launching the webinar very soon and inviting people to sign up for that.
Fantastic. With that in mind, and so that we have something to talk to you about next year, what are the current research projects that you have going? Is there anything that we should be keeping an eye on as well that's looking interesting for you?
Yeah, so the big things we're working on at the moment at East London that are focused on early years are maths through picture books, and also a project we're calling the Early Years Conversation Project. Early Years Conversation Project is all about the critical importance of conversation in the early years, helping children to develop their communication, their language, their vocabulary, and Fliss and Melissa in the team are working really hard on this at the moment, and we're going to be launching EYCP in the autumn of this year.
Okay, so something else for us to keep an eye on.
Sure.
I noticed as well at Sheringham Nursery School and Children's Centre, you've been doing a lot to support families who are affected by the cost of living crisis. I saw that you had a clothing bank, and that I've seen that you have a warm room as well for parents or families to come and sit in. What have you noticed about the effects that the crisis is having on families and children?
Yeah, so that's a really important question. And I think the first thing I would say is that these activities we're doing are really sticking plasters. They're tiny little things on a wound that is very big and very deep, I think, in poorer areas of London and England, like Newham, where I work. So we are offering a clothes exchange for families and toy exchange, book exchange. And one of the things we know about our community is that it's a very generous community, as well as supporting many families in need. And there's been lots of generous sharing of resources. And as you say, we are a warm haven as a children's centre. So parents with young children can use the children's centre facilities to have somewhere dry, warm, for themselves and for their kids to be. And I think that's an important offer from us. But I think the key thing that I would say is that, you know, we're not far from Canary Wharf and the City of London in Newham, and it is a disgrace that families are living in poverty in the way they are in Newham. I visit lots of families at home, and I see what a lot of our private rented accommodation is like in Newham, and that too is a disgrace. It's absolutely wrong for children to grow up in these conditions in 21st century London, in one of the richest places in the world. So we're working really hard to put sticking plasters, but what we need is a much bigger social change now to say that child poverty is not something we're prepared just to accept as a society. It damages children's health, it affects their happiness, it damages their early learning and development, and we've got to have concerted action to end child poverty in the UK.
I absolutely agree, and I think that's really powerful. And I think a lot of settings are also in the position where they want to offer that extra support, but there is only so much we're capable of, and it is a sticking plaster on what is essentially a huge problem. I'd love to talk as well a little bit about your new book. So you and Caroline Volans have just released your book, Putting the EYFS Curriculum into Practice. And I know there's lots of wonderful contributors to the book as well. What's the kind of main message that you'd like readers to come away from the book with? Okay,
I think that the key selling point we think of the book is that it's first of all very practical. So it's called Putting the EYFS Curriculum into Practice for a reason. It actually gives you the practical information you need as an early years educator to think about those different areas of learning in the EYFS, and to make sure that we do the very best for all of our children. And if there's a key takeaway message from it, I think it's let's look to the evidence to guide our decisions. So you might be very affected by someone who's like a very charismatic speaker. There's a lot of consultants out there working privately who can deliver, you know, exciting and engaging sessions, and we can easily kind of go down the line of doing things because we've been influenced or persuaded. And I'm saying, and Caroline is saying through this book, what we should really focus on is the best available evidence to inform our decision making. We also draw upon our professionalism as educators, our knowledge of the children, the community, the families, and it's that evidence plus professional judgment and experience that leads to evidence-informed practice. And evidence-informed practice is our best bet, I think, to make a difference for all of the children that we're working with.
I think that's a really important point, and you're absolutely right. It's very easy to go online, and there is a huge community of influencers in the early years, or there is a massive amount of information available to educators. I mean, where would you recommend is a great place to start if you want to avoid some of that noise and really come to find the true evidence-based practice? Where can you find that?
Yeah, so I think that a really good starting point is the Early Years Toolkit from the Education Endowment Foundation. That's a brilliant summary of lots and lots of robust research studies that helps us see quite quickly which sort of approaches are most likely to be effective to improve children's experience of their early education and care and their learning. But you can drill through the toolkit. So you start with that headline: how much will it cost? What's the strength of the evidence? How much impact will this have if it's implemented well? So you have a very simple top line, but you can drill into that and learn more and more. So I think that's a really good place to start. Start there, not for someone to tell you what to do, but to have that professionally informed conversation with colleagues. Let's have a look at what the evidence is telling us, the best evidence we've got at the moment, and use that to inform the professional judgments we make and the decisions we make. And the second thing I'd say about the toolkit is that at the heart of this is the EEF's mission, which is that all children deserve the best start to life. So it's very much about thinking about disadvantaged children, using the best evidence we've got to help them have the best possible experience in their early years, and also overcome those early disadvantages, have as good a chance as anyone else to do well through their education and in life after that.
That's excellent, thank you. And I think there is such a need for that real clear guidance where settings themselves are struggling financially and want to do the most they can with the least. So it's brilliant to have somewhere to start at least. I would like to ask as well, there's been a massive, again, refocus on the early years. Ofsted have chosen to focus on early years. We have the Royal Foundation for the... Let me start that again. The Royal Foundation. With the renewed focus on the early years, both from Ofsted and the Royal Foundation for Early Childhood, plus charities like Pregnant Then Screwed, we have a huge refocusing on the early years. It's been considered a good thing because we know it's important, but there's also opinion that awareness has been and gone. We need action. So what are your feelings around this focus on the early years at the moment?
I think it's really positive to see this focus on early years. And I think sometimes in the bubble, we feel that these messages have been rehashed many, many times and they feel very familiar to us. But part of the power of the Royal Foundation's research was to show us that actually many, many parents don't yet realise the critical importance of those early years. There's still a big job to do to get the wider public to understand what the scientific evidence is telling us about early childhood. And I think we have to take a moment as early years practitioners to accept and to have some humility around the fact that, we've had many years of Sure Start and lots of other initiatives, but the message isn't yet out there. So that's the first thing I would say, is that it is encouraging to see the message getting out, and it may feel very familiar to us, but actually we haven't yet done the job of getting this understanding wider in our society. But of course, raising awareness can only be the first step, and we need to see some action because I think early childhood is in a pretty fragile state in England at the moment. I've already spoken about child poverty, which we know will really damage babies and toddlers' health, happiness, future life chances. We see real problems in housing. We've got an early years sector that is close to collapse in some areas. Settings and childminders we work with in Newham are really struggling to stay open. We hear about early years practitioners reliant on food banks to get them through and their families through the week. So yeah, absolutely. The awareness is key, but we need some action to support this sector.
I absolutely agree. Julian, it's been really powerful talking to you. Thank you so much.